Oh, here goes, and welcome to the 172nd episode of Throwback Hoops. Woody V is in the house. Please follow the show on YouTube and wherever you listen to your podcasts. And as always, I'm joined by my main man, Robbie Clayton. How are you, bro?
What's up, Woods? Doing well. NBA season's done, which is always a little bit of a sad time, but we've got the draft kicking off in 2 days. We've got free agency starting next week, so there's a little bit to keep going, but a little bit sad the season's finished, but looking forward to chop it up and talk about that with you tonight.
Yeah, me too, Robbie. So let's get the show on the road. What jersey have you got for us today?
Well, this one's kind of, maybe you got me in the mood last week. So you wore a Kevin Garnett one from memory last week,
I did,
right?
yeah.
Okay, so this one here, there's a bit of a link to Kevin Garnett. So I'll show you who I'm rocking tonight.
So Robert's wearing the Minnesota Timberwolves, number 25, Al Jefferson jersey. The Cookie Monster.
You didn't know I had
Cookie
this one, did you?
Monster. No, I love that. I was actually checking on what he was doing at the moment recently, man. I Wikipedia'd him to see, or Googled him to see
Another
what
one of
he's
these
doing.
random ones. I don't know how long ago I got this, but I got it out of the cupboard tonight. I still had the tag on it, so I've got it all that time and never wore it. So I ripped the tag off, but so brand new. So thought I'd mention it. I sort of was thinking last week, I'm sure he was traded for Al Jefferson. I did a bit of a deep dive there. So so it's an Al Jefferson white Adidas Minnesota Timberwolves jersey. I know we say it, Woods really like these Adidas jerseys. This is a large size, which feels like a 2XL in these new Nike ones that are there. So a little bit on Big Al. He played 14 seasons in the NBA after getting drafted out of high school by the Celtics at pick 15 in the 2004 NBA draft. Now, put you on the spot here, Woods. There was actually 5 centers in that draft that were drafted in front of Al Jefferson, which is a bit of a shock. Can you name any of those 5?
What year was it?
2004.
That's the same draft as LeBron and that, right?
That was 2003.
2003. I'm just trying to think.
So another guy out of high school, a big guy that was like.
So you're talking. Give me a sec. Okafor maybe.
Okafor was one. Yep, one of them.
Was that Dwight? Was in that one?
Dwight. Yep, correct. So D12, and they're probably the. In fact, I think I'll give you the other 3, Woods, because they're pretty crazy. So, and just to think, this Al Jefferson was a good 14-season career. Rafael
Arroyo, yeah,
Toronto, right? I remember Taz on No Dunks used to always joke that he had his jersey.
Swift?
Correct. Robert Swift. That's a deep dive one. And the other one was someone I think we probably both like, and I'd certainly forgotten about his name, but Andres Biedrins.
Oh, yeah, love Biedrins.
So he was decent, the big Latvian guy, right? So, it's obviously a draft heavy with big men there. So, as I mentioned, he played with the Celtics, then got traded to the Wolves, also played with the Jazz, the Hornets/Bobcats, and then the Pacers, before finishing his career with a season in China in 2018. So, also played a little bit of Big Three as well after that time, like so many of these guys are doing. The 6'10" big man was named to the All-Rookie second team in 2005. And then he actually worked a lot of on his game and his body. He was someone that was probably carrying a few too many pounds. He was named to an All-NBA third team in 2014, which is pretty amazing there, Woods, to think he's an All-NBA player on his resume there. Ended up with really impressive career averages across those 14 seasons of 15.7 points and 8.4 boards. So someone that probably gets forgotten a little bit. I mean, he was a problem in the low block, wasn't he, back in the day? Still only 40 years of age, which is pretty crazy. So, as I mentioned, he spent some time in the Big Three as well as working in a few NBA development roles. But, someone that I think we both liked, and maybe someone we probably both haven't thought about for a while. But give me some thoughts on Mr. Jefferson.
Just so skillful with his back to the basket, at a variety of moves, drop steps, can finish in the mid-range, just a skillful offensive player. And I think guys like Al Jefferson, Roy Hibbert, all of a sudden they were unplayable in the NBA because the game shifted, and you saw them in their early 30s fade out of the league, right? Because there was no more room for that kind of guys, which is unfortunate because I feel like the game's going back to a place where a guy like Al Jefferson could potentially
a little bit, right? I feel like had the game been this way for a while, he could have adjusted to it. You know what I mean? It's just obviously you're a big guy, you're a big unit, get down in the low block. But I think with the game, the way the game's played now, he might have been taught differently in those high school and early NBA days there. But he was actually involved in that trade for Kevin Garnett. So that was the big sort of, I think it was around the draft as well that year where they made that big trade, Boston and Minnesota there.
Tell you a funny story. That year that Al Jefferson was starting for the Minnesota Timberwolves, he had a real bad injury. I think there's a couple of other injuries injuries. I think Nikola Pekovic was injured as well. And just
big
that
Peck.
that thrust Nathan Jawai into a starting role. And he had about a 7 or 8 game stretch that year
Yeah.
where he started for the Minnesota Timberwolves and had a few good games. So I recall Nathan Jawai talking about how much of an honor it was to learn from Al and how he's been a vet and he'd been showing him the ropes right in Minnesota.
Mate,
So,
Al Jefferson, Nikola Pekovic, and Nate Giles. I wouldn't want to get behind those three in the buffet line.
No.
My goodness,
Definitely
three
not.
absolute man mountains. Those
Yeah.
three. So yeah, so it's kind of cool. I like this jersey as well. I like this sort of old style Minnesota jersey and that. And yeah, a little bit of a trip down memory lane. Do you want me to go into card of the week straight away?
yeah, go for it, man.
So a bit of a. It's one of those players, I've got different sort of collections I collect with these cards, Woods. I like getting Hawks autograph cards. I like getting my rookie cards. I've also got a bit of a collection of people that have played in the NBA and in the NBL. So that's the one I'm showing this week. So this is a 2015-2016 Panini Select card, and it's a rookie card of someone that played in the NBA and also someone that you'll probably fondly remember from his time in the Sydney Kings. So none other than Jarell Martin. So hopefully that one comes up there. So this is one of those ones that's kind of got everything, Wood. So it's an autograph card. It's a relic card. So you see the relic there as well. It's also number 44 of 49 there. So, big Jarell Martin, 6'10", 240 out of LSU College. First round pick 25 in the draft there. So I was going to ask you about him. Firstly, nice card, right?
Great
Shout
card.
out to the guy on the card pages that I get cards from that came this week. It's his rookie card there, Jarell Martin. I was just checking after he finished with Adelaide last year, he went to playing Korea, ended up having a foot injury, and basically contract got terminated there. So he's getting on a little bit now. He's had a lot of injuries now. Do you think we'll see him in the NBL again, or will it be sort of China or sort of a gun for hire now for different countries?
I think he's got to get back into shape. The big problem with him coming to Adelaide last year, he was out of shape. He was not able to play big minutes.
Yeah.
And that player we saw in Sydney, he wasn't there, right? So for him to get opportunities to play in leagues of this standard, he's going to have to get into better shape and get better conditioning. In his early 30s, there's still time left, right?
Talk to me about how important he was on those Kings championship runs there and how much you like his game.
Amazing. And look, he was actually part of the last year with Gies, if I'm not mistaken, right? And that with Casper Ware and those teams, and he stayed on, right, to win that championship when and him actually coming back was awesome. He was familiar with the system there. Some of the players came at him and DJ Vasiljevic built a very good bond in their time in Sydney.
Yeah.
And look, he was exactly what we needed on that team, right? That first championship team. He fitted in with Chase and the kind of principles that he was trying to push there, and he'll fondly be remembered in Sydney forever.
He's one of those guys, I'm not sure of the exact total, but he played quite a lot of NBA games too, so he's got quite I'm not sure the total games, we could sort of fact check that, but had a good few years in the NBA. Did he maybe check that while I'm sort of talking? But I know there was a stat for guys that have played in the NBA and NBL, and I know he played quite a few games. You get a few that have maybe only had a handful
184
of games.
NBA games.
So, you're playing over 100 NBA games. That's quite a lot, right? You're not just riding the bench for one season.
Yeah, 22.8 minutes a game in one season as well.
Nice looking card though, right? So it's pretty boring on the back. But so it's a rookie card, relic, numbered card of Jarell Martin of the Memphis Grizzlies. Nice. All right, so I see you're rocking a jersey, and obviously got a bit of a theme with that one today. Nice OKC hat as well, and obviously the OKC jersey. But why don't you show us who you're rocking
sure,
today?
man.
Woody's standing up rocking the very different looking OKC number 35 Kevin Durant jersey. What is that, a camo jersey? Or what is
It's a
what's
camo
the style?
jersey.
Camo
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have ourselves a trade. So
Yeah.
look, before we get into the trade, I just wanted to say something, right? Like, so OKC NBA champions, for those who haven't been watching the NBA finals, which hardly anyone listens to our show, or nobody listens to our show. Great moment for the OKC Thunder. So I thought it was only fitting that I wear the Thunder outfit today after they win the championship, right?
Yeah.
I've also got the Kevin Durant bobblehead here, right?
It's actually not a bad one. Some of those ones don't really look anything like a player. That's not bad. I can see that one. They're a young Kevin Durant, but pre-backpack days and everything else like that. He seemed to be a bit of a nicer, happier guy back in those days. I would have thought when he was dressed like that.
That's the question I got for you, right? Because it's just ironic. The day he gets traded is the day that the team that gave him an opportunity to grow from a boy to a man, as you mentioned, won a championship that day. And it got me thinking, like, those great young OKC teams with young Russell Westbrook, young Kevin Durant, and Serge Ibaka and stuff. They were like this team a little bit as well, man. They had a bunch of young guys who competed for a championship well before many of us thought they could, right?
True.
Just think about those guys now. don't you think that Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, Serge Ibaka, they were sitting somewhere watching OKC win that Game 7, and they had a little smile or poured themselves a glass of wine or a beer to just say,
and look, that shows you how the NBA can change, right? Because they got to that final series there, they had this young core of a team. They probably thought, oh, we'll be back next year and we'll start to get some rings, sort of thing. It never happened, right? So you just never know what's going to happen. We'll talk about obviously that championship series, but OKC being the seventh different team in the last 7 years to win, which is great for parity of the league and everything else like that. But it just shows you never know. One injury away or something that's going to change your whole destiny there. But I think you're right. Those guys will be kicking back, and I'm sure Nick Collison's and some of these
Nick
guys,
Collison as well,
Ridnows and these sort of guys that were back in the day. So no, it was nice to see them get that win as well.
Awesome. So let's talk about the trade then. So the Phoenix Suns have agreed on a blockbuster trade, sending 15-time NBA All-Star Kevin Durant to the Houston Rockets for Jalen Green, Dillon Brooks, the number 10 pick in this year's draft, and 5 second-round picks. Sources told ESPN. So talk to me.
Well, firstly, I didn't love the timing of this trade, but I'm sure the NBA wouldn't have liked it either. So it came out on basically the morning of Game 7. So on Monday morning, we're recording Tuesday the 24th of June, but it came out yesterday. So I logged on, thought I'd listen to a couple of preview podcasts of Game 7, before the game when it started. I'm like, what the heck? There's been a trade. So didn't think the timing was great, but look, we kind of knew that KD was going to get traded. There's been, lots of, whispers over the last probably 2 weeks. There was, Minnesota was mentioned, Spurs are mentioned, Houston were definitely mentioned, and obviously that's where I ended up going there. But I like the trade for Houston. Jalen Green's a funny one. He led their team in scoring last year, but I don't think he was that sort of valued in the organisation. I think they were kind of almost a little bit pleased to get rid of him. They did give up the number 10 pick in the draft. It's in 2 days, which you never know what that'll be. But the rest of the stuff, apart from Dillon Brooks, was second rounders. So who cares about second rounders? No one. They're not that as valuable as people think there. And look, for Dillon Brooks as well, yes, he's a good defender, but they got a lot of guys that can do that same role, right? They've got Amen Thompson, they've got your boy Jabari Smith, they've got Tari Eason, they've got guys that can come in and fill that role, and they didn't want to kind of pay him that contract. He's obviously a bit of an interesting character there. But from a Houston point of view, though, yeah, wow, getting KD, they were second in the West last year. This is a guy that just averaged 25 points in his sleep, right? Yes, he's had a couple of injuries, but he's still never slowed down from the offensive end. They've got the defensive guys to cover him as he's a little bit older, a little bit slower, maybe not jumping as high as he used to now. But this is a win-now move for them, I reckon. I think they've got 2 years on his deal there. And they're going to be a force to be reckoned with next year. I'm looking forward to see. I think he's got a pre-existing relationship with Coach Ime Udoka already, which is a good thing for them. Yeah, so I think they've done pretty well. And I'm assuming it's one of those ones that the sources say and everything, but it can't be announced until I think is it the 6th of July or something like that. Yep. So I know there's another trade we'll talk about as well, but I think they're going to happen, but it's just not official as yet. But yeah, what were your thoughts on the trade? Do you think it was a win for Houston as well?
I think so. And as also with Houston, we talked about Reed Shepherd. My terrible pick for Rookie of the Year, right? Now this gives him an opportunity to play a little bit more with Jalen leaving, right? And hopefully we can see an ascension there. I mean, Amen Thompson and the way he sort of really grew in the back half of last season to become one of the best defenders in the league, right? Tari Eason can do it. He wreaks havoc on the defensive end too. That made it a lot easier to part ways with someone like Dillon Brooks. So I think that the Houston Rockets are in a pretty good position to contend for a championship next year.
What about from the other side? I mean, Phoenix, I'm still not sure. I think Booker will probably stay. Beal's pretty hard to move with that no trade clause. You wonder where they're going next year, right? Will Dillon Brooks even stay on the team? I think they've come out today and said they want to keep Jalen Green there. Look, you need someone. He could put up some pretty big numbers, maybe get him on your fantasy team next year if he stays with them. But I don't know. That team seems like
Booker's got to go, right? Beal's got a no trade clause, right?
Yeah.
And he doesn't want to go anywhere. He didn't want to leave Washington for a decade, right? Even though they were losing.
What do you get for Beal though? Do you get one of those deals that like the Mikal Bridges deal or some of these deals
for Booker? You mean?
For Booker, yeah. I mean, do you give up 5 first-round picks for him? I'm not quite sure. I mean, he's a great player. I guess we maybe forgotten about him a little bit with these last couple of seasons in Phoenix there. But yeah, you wonder what his actual currency is worth now. And I don't know. I feel like Phoenix do want to maybe keep him. I know Matt Ishbia, the GM there's, he wants to win now, so I don't think he wants to bottom out. But I don't think they have a choice with this team they've got at the moment. There's not many prospects at all there.
Well, you've got Grayson Allen, you've got Bradley Beal, you've got Jalen, you've got Devin Booker. I mean, there's too many guards there. These guys got to go, right? Someone's got to go, right?
Yeah, true.
Okay, so let me talk about the next trade. This one actually surprised me this morning.
This came through today, didn't it?
Came through today. So the Boston Celtics are trading Drew Holiday to the Portland Trailblazers for Anthony Simmons and 2 second-round draft picks, sources told ESPN. I'm not sure what to think about this. I mean, Drew Holiday really fell off a cliff last year, right?
Yeah. Hey,
But
Simons or Simmons? I never quite know for sure.
Simons.
I
It's
think it's
Simons.
Simons, right?
It's
It's one
Simons.
M.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
Simons, all good. Yeah, look, you're right. He helped them, win that chip. He's got 2 championships now, one with the Bucks, one with Boston. But he did fall off a bit this year. I don't mind it for Boston, in all honesty. Anthony Simons led Portland in scoring last year. He was just a shade under 20 points a game. They obviously need someone to put points on the board with Tatum, missing a big chunk of next year. I think he could be huge in that trade there. Did you say it was a straight up trade as well? Was there any other parts involved, or?
Yeah, so 2 second round draft picks, right? So
Yeah, that seems to be that sort of going rate.
coming back, yeah,
Chucking a
with
second
Anthony
rounder in
Simons,
there.
yeah.
And Drew Holiday was with Portland before, or was traded there and then traded on and stuff, wasn't he?
Yeah, he
It's
never
like
played for Portland
that
the
full
first time
circle
as
sort of
well.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I've heard Boston's sort of not happy with that. They're looking at maybe making other moves there. So maybe they want to get younger woods. Maybe like Al Horford might be on his way out. They're getting rid of Drew Holiday. Maybe they're going to try and get a bit of not a rebuild, that's the wrong word, but just a mini little, sort of retooling of the team there. But yeah, I was a little bit surprised about that. I'm not quite sure. It hasn't quite sunk in yet. I don't mind it for Boston. That's probably my first thought. I know for Portland, they're saying, look, that's a good mentor for someone like Scoot Henderson.
Yeah, absolutely.
It gives the keys a little bit more to Shaden Sharp now, who will probably be the man on that team next year. But yeah, how did you see that one?
Yeah, I really like it for Portland, right? I was very critical of them, but then by the end of the season, Chauncey Billups had completely turned me around, right? And a guy like
Yeah.
DeAndre Ayton was useful there, He had some good moments. I mean, he fitted in there. So having another vet like on that roster doesn't hurt, right? And I think
Hey, could they
Portland,
play Matisse, Thibault, Tamani Kamara, and Drew Holiday on the team at once? My goodness, that'd be a problem, wouldn't it?
that would be a problem. And,
That
and
would
they
be.
definitely could, right? Drew
Yeah.
Holiday could
Yeah.
start at the 1, you
True.
could have Kamara at the 2 and Ty Bull at the 3. Or,
Maybe they like that sort of lineup
Yeah.
there, and Billups wants to instill this defensive team there. But yeah, we'll obviously see how this one goes. But yeah, it was a bit of a surprise. Didn't really see that one coming, to be honest.
Yeah, you might see a little bit of a rise in Drew Holiday's fantasy value next season
Maybe,
in Portland, potentially, right?
maybe.
Okay, cool. So let's break down the games then, Robbie. So when we last spoke, it was 3-2, right?
Yeah, and we said it'd be over the next game, and it
We
wasn't.
said it'd be over the next game, and it wasn't. The Pacers won Game 6, and OKC won Game 7 yesterday. We'll break down those games in just a second, but before we do that, I mean, I just wanted to talk to you about what this means to the champions and the franchise. So Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, MVP of the finals, MVP of the regular season, and the scoring leader, right?
Yeah.
They were saying, when was the first time since that happened?
Well, the only people that have done that, I believe, are Shaq, Michael Jordan, and there's one other person I'm blanking on it now. I'll probably come to me in a little bit, but
Yeah.
yeah, and also the fact just even winning MVP and Finals MVP and a champion, that hasn't happened since LeBron won it. There's only a handful of players, like Akeem did it once, Jordan's obviously done it a lot there, but yeah, only a handful of of players that have done that there. But yeah, look, it just caps off just an incredible season by SGA, doesn't it? It was a unanimous Finals MVP, which you don't see very often. It was none of these Golden State situations where Iguodala won it, and they're always sort of, geez, Sha'Carri won it. I mean, absolutely unanimous there. And yeah, look, just an incredible season. As I said, I think they ended up winning, was it 83 games when you factor in the playoff games and that was sort of top 5 most wins of all time. And yeah, second youngest team ever to win it, and the youngest basically of our whole lifetime there, Wood. So this potential dynasty, I would have thought.
And when we look back, right, I talked about those guys, Kevin Durant, Serge Ibaka, and everyone, right? This franchise came into the league when Seattle left in 2008, right? It's been an awesome 17 years. They've built a great fan base. It's a great community-based team. They've gone through ups and downs. When they lost Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, and everything, you would have thought a small market team like OKC might take a long time to get to the promised land, but give credit to Sam Presti, right? And the job that he's done over there. And
I like seeing that breakdown of how they've constructed their current roster, and you look at some of the moves and that. I mean, it's funny, you get guys like J-Dub, Jalen Williams. I mean, there's some guys on that team, like Ousmane Dieng was drafted higher than Jalen Williams, and there's a couple of other sort of bit players, I think maybe Kason Wallace might have been, but yeah, they've definitely drafted well. There's been a couple of little misses there. They did draft Alperen Şengün, which a lot of people sort of forget about, and they moved him on. But yeah, look, the way they've stockpiled draft picks, getting that SGA was just an all-time trade, wasn't it? It's going to be one that probably looks back in history as one of the the most franchise-altering trades I think we've ever seen in our time following the game. So yeah, Presti's done a great job there. And shout out to Mark Dagnall as well, the coach. He's not often heralded. It feels like had they have lost and Indiana won, there would have been a lot of heat on him. Oh, you're out coached by a veteran coach, but he did everything well. He led the team so well this year. They loved playing for the guy. Shout out to him there. Probably the most maybe unheralded coach of a championship team we've seen. Right?
Very unheralded. He's young as well, right?
Yeah.
Learning the job, and that fits with the team as well. A bunch of young guys trying to make it, and as you said, because they're so young and they've had success so early on in this little window of theirs, it's not. There's a likelihood they do win a lot more, and this becomes a bit of a franchise.
Look, we see
bit
it
of a dynasty.
Win. Yeah, of course, and we know. Look, these guys are close and everything else like that. But the bottom line is, when teams win, players' value goes up. Right, as much as these guys like playing with each other, they're not going to be able to do it. Right, the second apron salary cap, all these sort of things like that. They're going to have to make some moves there and possibly some hard calls. And there's one I heard today. It was like, can they afford to keep someone like Lou Dort there, who's so important to that championship run? And obviously, you hear that, like, of course they're going to keep Dort, but they can't keep everyone. That's the whole point there. If they want to sign, J-Dub and Chet to potentially close to max contracts there, you can't bring all these guys back. So it'll be interesting to see how they construct this roster. Whether some guys do, just end up getting a better deal now. We always talk about the Bruce Brown one from Denver, right? He ended up getting a pay increase and he left the champions the next season. So the thing is, there potentially someone on the team that leaves, whether it's a Wallace, a Wiggins. A Joe, the other Jalen Williams, someone like that. That's just like, you know what, I'm a champion now. I'm going to go and get a ring. What about Nikola Topic as well, Woods? So he's the first player in NBA history to play 0 games and get 1 championship. So that's just an incredible stat. And shout out to our boy Alex Dukas, so becoming the 9th Australian to get a ring. So, and he did play in the season. He had, I don't know how many games he played. He was obviously a two-way player.
Bit of garbage time here and there.
Yeah, it wasn't eligible for the finals. But yeah, great to see him win that. Another guy I've commentated with. So either one of those teams that won would have been someone I've commentated. So that was kind of cool seeing that personally.
Yeah, for sure, man. And what about the Pacers? Like, they've been forever, everyone's like not giving them the credit they deserved,
Yeah.
And look, they just time after time proved everyone wrong. And they've got to be really happy with this. Game 7 of an NBA Finals, there's no way anyone in the world would have thought that would have happened, right?
And leading at halftime by a couple of points as well. Look, it was really sad to see the Tyrese Haliburton thing. He went down. You knew it was bad. Obviously, the news has come out. It was a ruptured Achilles there. He's already had surgery there, and he will miss next season, given how late the injury is now. So it could have gone either way, couldn't it? After that, having the team could have just galvanised and maybe gone on and just had an inspirational win there, but I think it kind of got to him. OKC went on that run, and they didn't really have an answer for him, the Pacers. But yeah, you're right. Absolutely incredible season to get to Game 7 of the NBA Finals, a team that no one really respected. And shout out to Haliburton. I think he had, 4 or 5 game winners alone just in the playoffs there. And all these guys we've spoken about, your Siakams, your Obi Toppins, my boy TJ McConnell, Nemhard and Nemsmith there. These guys that, no one probably knew a lot of them at the start of the season.
Benedict Mathurin as well,
Absolutely. He had a couple of big games, didn't he? So, yeah, look, I was so happy for either team to win, to be honest. It wasn't like I was really going for one team over another, but yeah, it did feel from a little bit after Haliburton's news. That was hard to see seeing him go down like that, wasn't it?
Let's just break that down really quickly. So Game 6 was in Indiana, and the score was 108-91. That's a bit of a, there was a bit of garbage time at the end there where OKC brought it back, but Indiana won actually a lot more comfortably than the 17 points showed. And Tyrese Haliburton had a calf strain in that game itself where he left. He only played 20-odd minutes, right? Now, in that game, you saw the likes of, TJ McConnell and whatnot step up in his absence because they needed to, and they really galvanized to win that game. And none of us expected it. We expected they'd just die in that Game 6, right?
We did what everyone else did and just kept on riding the Pacers off. I mean, this was an amazing effort by them. The crowd were huge in that game as well, just quietly, but they were up 22 points at halftime in this one. Behind a huge 36-17 second quarter. And they had a really good spread of scoring in this game, didn't they? They were surprisingly led by Obi Toppin with 20. Siakam had a big double-double, and TJ just huge again, 12 points, 9 rebounds, 6 assists, 4 steals.
Yeah,
what a great rebounder for his size.
I know, man.
He in position. He gets offensive boards and goes up over big guys. For OKC in that game, I thought Chet had an absolute stinker. So he was 4 points and 6 rebounds, and was honestly a total non-factor in that game. And also J-Dub and Caruso were -40 and -33 plus-minus respectively there. So they never really got going. But look, it was all Pacers in that game. And it set up that huge Game 7, right?
Yeah, that huge Game 7. And look, We talked about the injury. So Tyrese, do you want to tell the audience a little bit about what happened with Tyrese Haliburton?
Yes, look, he'd already scored 9 points in that first quarter of Game 7, and just basically was with the ball, tried to drive, and he just saw his right bottom of his right leg, obviously his Achilles there, just go down. It was, there's lots of replays of it. It looked nasty. He knew it was what happened straight away. You could tell the pain he was in there, and it was a real shock that came over the stadium there. The fans are pretty classy, I thought. I reckon if that would have happened in some other cities, there might have been cheering or other stuff like that. But the place was silent there. SJ came over, great sportsmanship there, and kind of just wished him all the best and everything else like that. But look, it did change the outcome of the game. But as I mentioned before, they were up at half time. So OKC ended up winning 103-91. And look, SGA came up big. He had 29-5 and a playoff career high 12. It wasn't a perfect game for him, though, was it? He shot 8 of 27 for the game there, so it wasn't like a completely perfect game. Chet, though, was probably the big story for me. He had 18 points, 8 rebounds, and 5 blocks.
Defensively, man.
Yeah, it was 5 blocks and probably had 5 chain shots as well. We know that's a stat that don't count, but when guys are throwing up shots and you see this, massive guy like him, and you're changing the angle or putting it with extra arc, so he changed shots there as well. And I also thought Caruso, Wallace, and Dort all played really good D. They all had 3 steals each as well. So didn't think it was the best game. I think both teams shot about 40% there. The field goal percentages weren't great there, but full credit to OKC. And just a shame we didn't have Haliburton for the whole game, but that's life and that's basketball, I guess.
Yeah, poor guy, man. I think the whole basketball world felt for that moment, something, right? And look, that calf strain that he actually picked up in Game 6 would have definitely not helped with the injury that he got.
I think it was
right?
Game 5, wasn't it? That's when he went and had the scans, and then he played Game 6.
Oh, it was Game 5. Sorry,
Game 5.
My
Game
bad.
6,
My
he
bad.
seemed okay, but look, obviously you're putting that stress on that part of the body and that. And there was fears. I had a mate that mentioned, I hope that doesn't happen like that. And this is the third guy we've seen with this injury in the playoffs, and all superstars: Dame Lillard, Jason Tatum, and now Tyrese Haliburton. A little bit eerie that all 3 of those guys wear the jersey number 0. So I had a look on Basketball Reference today. I think there was 26 players in the NBA that wore number 0 last year. So those guys maybe be a little bit careful there because there's a bit of a curse going around. But crazy to think. And obviously with people know it's normally a 12-month injury. So if you're getting injured in nearly towards the end of June in the playoffs, the season's gone, right? So I mean, Lillard might get back. Tatum, not sure. Probably not. And I don't think there's any way Haliburton can get back. I know the modern science and all that stuff's better than it used to be, but you can't rush an injury like that.
Yeah, I'll just read a quick quote to you. So you're right. Yeah, it was Game 5, and despite being listed as a game time decision, he played in Game 6. And after making through that completely unscathed, he took the court in Game 7, right? And he said he didn't regret playing through that calf strain, which actually led to him tearing his Achilles. So the calf strain actually played a role in that Achilles tear, right? And then he said, I'd do it again and again after that to fight for this city and my brothers. Haliburton wrote an emotional statement, posted to social media Monday night for the chance to do something special. So, I mean, this just shows the kind of man he is, and he's a warrior, right? Yeah.
Good words, right? Yeah, and I think you can tell he sort of meant every word that he said there as well. So, yeah, hopefully he comes back, better. I think it's not that death sentence injury we did see back in the day with players. Now we have seen players come back pretty well from that injury there, and wish him all the best in his recovery. But it's all about OKC now. They can have their parade. They can go and celebrate and everything like that. I saw J-Dub tried alcohol for the first ever time. Did you read that?
Did he?
Never drunk before. He said he had a little bit of champagne and a beer, hated it, and he won't be drinking anymore. But I thought that was pretty funny hearing that. So he's a goodie sort of guy, isn't he?
Yeah.
Caruso showed him how to party. He's the only one there with already had the championship there. And I'm sure that city is just absolutely buzzing. A bit of a working class kind of city, I guess. And
absolutely.
Yeah, it's you're right. A team that sort of, I know that counts as another championship for the Seattle OKC history, doesn't it? But let's face it, it's OKC's first, and they'll celebrate accordingly.
Awesome, man. So now with the NBA season over, let's turn our attention to the draft, right? And like every year we do this, we do our picks. We pick 3 guys each, right? And then we give a little bit of a background around them. We don't set any rules. You talk about them how you see fit. I do the same. But this year we've kept a little bit of a structure to it, right?
Yeah.
I gave you a little bit of homework and I said, let's make it 3 distinct draft choices, right? 1, a lottery pick. 2nd, an Australian, because there's plenty of Australians to choose from in this draft, right? And then a sleeper pick, someone you might get in the 2nd round or late in the 1st round. And there's not much fanfare surrounding them, right? That might just end up being someone that's a great NBA player in 10 years' time, right?
Yeah. We'll have to keep a record of who we've picked in these previous years because we've done this every year. I know we enjoy this part. And for those that don't know as well, the draft's now done over 2 days. So the first round is Thursday Australian time, then they'll do a second round on Friday. And second round might be one to keep an interest for because that's where you're going to probably see, well, you will see a lot of these Aussie guys hopefully getting drafted. So I'll be definitely tuning into both days of that.
All right, cool. So let's start with our lottery picks, right? So maybe I'll kick things off,
Sure.
right? I've got a little bit of a format I've come up with, Robbie. So I'm gonna start off with VJ Edgecombe from Baylor, right? I'm gonna give you a quick summary as per Yahoo, right? What his stats were in his last season, and then some of his strengths and weaknesses coming to the NBA, right? And also we can give a player comparison if you did that yourself,
Yeah,
didn't
I
you?
did that.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. All right. So let's start with VJ Edgecombe. All right. All right, so 6'4", 193. He's a freshman, age 19. Edgecombe is an explosive, high motor wing who flies out of nowhere for poster dunks and chase down blocks. He pairs his elite athleticism with a knockdown, spot-up jumper, and fearless slashing. Though he needs to improve his shot creation to become more of a primary creator, right? So he averaged 15.1 points, 5.6 rebounds, and 3.3 assists, and 2.1 steals in 33 minutes last year, right? Some of the strengths he brings to the table: he's a very athletic player. He can leap out of the gym. He's a great spot-up shooter. And, his shooting forces defenses to respect him. He's fearless. He'll drive into traffic and absorb contact with physicality, toughness, and he has a desire to score. And he's a willing defender, right? Some of the concerns is in the NBA, you need to be consistent defensively. The knock on him is he's going to need to improve more on defense to be a lockdown guy against guards and a reliable off-ball defender, right? In this league, having a reliable three-point shot and the ability to lock down on defense is something that's vital to get playing time. He's now listed as number 3 to Philadelphia. So tell me what you know a little bit about VJ Edgecombe.
Everything I'm hearing about him, it sounds like he's going to be a lock to go to Philly Woods. I think they like that combination of him and Tyrese Maxey together. So probably not the biggest backcourt, but obviously he's a good defender and an athlete there. So the two of those would be a handful there, wouldn't they? But no, I think he's good. Obviously, just the freshman year, just the 1 year of college there, and he's shown a lot there. So I think that the first 3 are absolutely set. I think for the draft. So Cooper Flagg, and then Harper, the Spurs will pick, and then I think Philly will take your boy VJ there. But yeah, I think he's pretty exciting. Who you got for a player conference?
Yeah, so I thought about this a lot, looked at a lot of videos, and I'm going to go with Victor Oladipo, right? Victor Oladipo, athletic guy, has all the tools to be a great NBA player. So yeah, I'm going to go with Victor Oladipo for VJ Edgecombe.
Nice.
Over to you, my man.
Nice. Well, I haven't told you who I was doing, so I thought long and hard about this. So I've decided to go a big man for my lottery pick. So I'm going with Carmen Maliwach.
Sick. Yeah.
So the big guy that came out of Duke. So look, this is a guy I followed pretty closely last season, Wood. So I was thinking as well, if he was somehow to slide to pick 13 for our Hawks, I would be really pleased. But I don't see that happening. Look, I think he may be the best big man in this year's draft. Certainly a big man. There's a couple of 6'9", 6'10" guys, but this is a legit 7-footer. So he's a South Sudanese refugee. He actually ended up living in Uganda for a while before going over to the US. So he's improved every year, Wood. So he's projected as a genuine rim protector and a lob threat there. He's also had some big game experience as well. So he played with the South Sudan in the recent Olympics. Also had some big games with Duke, which I think will also help the guy being 18 years of age. So he's already been on that big stage before. So look, a lot of the experts are saying that if he's continues to improve like he has been, he's got so much upside there. I think he's possibly someone that can contribute, straight away on a team there. And I think, it's hard to know exactly where he'll go there. I'd say he might go around that 7 to 9 range from what I'm sort of thinking there. In terms of what he maybe needs to work on, probably shooting would be the main thing there. I think he hasn't had that real opportunity to shoot from the outside. His lateral movement a little bit as well when he perhaps gets switched on to smaller guards, but I think that's definitely stuff you can teach a guy there. So really excited to see what he can do for player comps for me. Maybe similar a little bit to a Mitchell Robinson. So that would be one there. And this one's maybe a bit of a reach. This would all depend on if you can improve his outside game. But maybe a little bit of Kristaps Porzingis there. So maybe he's higher wraps there. But do you know much about
Yeah, I actually did look. I was more like a, Sagana Job kind of guy, right?
Okay,
He's very offensively challenged, right? From because I was doing some research on the draft, and I actually looked at a lot of videos.
But he had
of
played
him.
with a lot of scorers in college,
Yeah.
right? So, like...
I think he averaged 8 and 6 at Duke, which is solid. 20 odd minutes a game from when I from memory when looking at his stats.
You like the Mitchell Robinson one? I think that's Kristaps one's a bit of a reach. But I like the Mitchell Robinson one, right? If you can do that, I mean, a lot of teams would value that.
Yeah, I mean, rim runner, lob threat, block shots, rebound, stay out of foul trouble, right? These are the things that get him minutes on an NBA floor, right?
Exactly, yeah. No, looking forward to seeing it go. Like I said, I'd love if you'd slide to Hawks at pick 13, but don't think that's going to happen.
Yep. No worries. Let's move on to our Australian. You go. Might as well while you've done
it. No worries. Well, I might as well keep the big man theme then, Wood. So I'm going to go and chat a little bit about Rocco Zikarsky. So I know this is one we're both really excited about here, Woods. So big Rocco is still only 18 years of age and is the biggest player in this year's draft class at 7'3". A little bit of a tricky one with him. I think he's put on a bit of weight and a bit of muscle, since the NBL season finished with Brisbane there. It's hard to get a bit of a read on where he might be drafted. I do think he's someone that's still quite raw and doesn't quite have that modern game that, for a big that teams are sort of after these days. I don't think he's going to be someone that you eventually get, popping out to 23 feet and shooting outside shots. I just don't think it's going to be someone that does that. But that's fine, right? We've got plenty of guys in the league that don't do that, whether it's a Mitchell Robinson or a Clint Capella. Or there's guys that you don't have to be big and shoot threes there. I think the stuff that he needs to work on there, possibly that low post game, when they're sort of getting clear out offenses for him there, and maybe just on his handles a little bit. I'd like to see him, catch the ball on the baseline and just be able to sort of, put a couple of dribbles there and get to the basket. He's someone that does rely on a good point guard feeding him, right? That's probably his strength there. Being a lob threat and everything else like that. I think he's an instant lob threat as well, Woods. I think whoever he goes to, he'll be, catching alley-oops straight away. And I think he'll also, we mentioned it with Chet before, someone with his size and wingspan that can really change a lot of shots. So whether he's blocking shots or changing shots, he's someone that you've always got to be aware of where he is, right? If he's coming from the weak side, he's someone that you've got to watch out for. Playing D there. I sort of thought about both those teams in the NBA Finals. I think if he was on either of those teams, he probably would have played some meaningful minutes, right? That's always a good way to kind of think about it, right? You could have seen him playing in that final series just with his sheer size to try and, cause matchup problems and everything else like that. So, look, in terms of where he gets picked, I'm probably going to say in the late 30s, maybe early 40s there. I'd love to see him move up to early 30s. Not quite sure. And second round is kind of, you can take a punt and play. So maybe he does end up going a little bit earlier than early 40s there. I'll ask for some thoughts on him and then I'll give you my player comp. So, what are your thoughts on Big Rocco?
Yeah, look, I mean, I think he's got to bulk up a little bit because, the other big bodies, he's going to get pushed around a little bit. He's not as offensively skilled as someone like a Chet, right? You know what I mean? Like, he's very limited in his offensive skill set. He needs to develop there. I think like a Walker Kessler, that's the kind of comparison I would sort of throw out there. He could go down that route, right? What are your thoughts there?
Well, my comparison, so one of them was probably an easy one, was a fellow giant from last year's draft in Zach Edey, right? So someone that can come on, grab some boards, change some shots. For my other one there, maybe it's a lefty, but I've gone a real deep dive, a lefty giant from the 80s and 90s, Woods, and it's a player comparison and a shout out to the late and great Mark Eaton.
Yeah, sick.
So what do you think of that one?
Because, I mean, a lot of people were saying Walker Kessler's player comp is Mark Eaton coming out of college.
Even more so now, Rocco, with being a lefty and stuff as well. So you like that one, right?
Yeah,
so
definitely.
Wouldn't it be funny
if
Utah ended up drafting him and he could go
definitely like that one. Definitely like Mark Eaton,
look,
man. Yeah.
If he could have a career like Mark Eaton, we'd be happy.
I was actually going to say that
nice.
before.
We always think alike.
That's really good, man. Really good analysis. He's listed at 41. On the draft board.
But how teams can just take a swing. He could potentially move up 6 or 7 spots, maybe, and go down that sort of thing. If there's someone that just get these whispers right before Thursday, you never know, right?
Yep, you never know. So from one Aussie to another, I'm going to talk about Alex Tui, right? Now, played a couple of years already, in the NBL as part of the Next Stars program.
Former teammate with Rocco at COE as well.
Exactly. And look, 6'8", 223, just 20 years of age, already 2 years as a pro, as I mentioned. Tui is a jack-of-all-trades Australian forward who grinds on defense and loves to dish the ball around, but his scoring comes and goes with his streaky jumper, since he's not someone who generates many of his own shots, okay? So some of his strengths, he's defensively very versatile. He can guard a number of positions. He can guard guards. He could probably guard power forwards. Even in some lineups, he could guard centers, right?
Yeah.
In transition, he is a threat. He can get the rebound, put the ball on the floor. We've seen him and go. Floor, ring to ring. And
Sneaky hops, that guy.
and go. And attack the rim himself after picking up the rebound. A bit like Xavier Cooks. Gets the ball off the floor and puts it. And in transition, he can be very dangerous. So I think that's something that'll definitely, with more space in the NBA, that's definitely going to help him, right? Playmaking. He's a very selfless passer. We saw that. He's always looking for his teammates, always trying to make the right play. These are some of the strengths which he can bring into the NBA already, and he's very well seasoned and polished in those areas. His concern is his shooting. We know that he can knock down that three. He's got a good stroke, but he only made 20% on 2.6 attempts per game over his 2 seasons with the Kings, right? And that's a bit of a concern. And he really doesn't have anything in that mid-range. He either scores at the ring or he can. He's not shooting that three at a very effective percentage either. So he needs to find other ways to score in the mid-range, maybe some floaters and stuff. We don't see a lot of that from Alex Tui ever, do we? So, yeah.
I think it was a little bit hard with that situation with the Kingswoods. They were a loaded team there. Brian Gorgian maybe doesn't like playing some of these young guys. There was a lot of times last season where we were like, why is Tui not playing more? And, maybe it's hard to come on with those spot minutes and, you maybe miss a shot and you get yanked a couple of minutes later. So, I get what you're saying. He needs to get that consistency there. But I do think a lot of his tools translate to the NBA as well. So I'm looking forward to see where he goes. We think he's going to go higher than Rocco at this stage? Or?
Yeah, so Tui is
Mid-30s,
currently at 45 actually. Yeah, as of yesterday's draft. So I think that transition is the one thing that he can bring to the NBA.
Yeah.
Even if it's not for himself. In transition, being a threat for his teammates. Getting to the rim. And at that size, that's the unique trait that he has.
Hey, who has a better NBA career, Johnny Furphy or Alex Tui?
That's a hard call, man.
It's a tough one, isn't it? Kind of similarities to them.
I'm probably going to say Alex Tui, a little bit more versatile, and that brings me to the comparison. Solomon Hill, right? Our guy,
Yeah.
6'6", could play the three, could guard the three, guard the four, could guard twos, right? A guy's a bit of a tweener, right? I think it's hard to find someone who plays like Tui, right?
But I was going to say a poor man's Jalen Johnson.
Right. Okay.
Poor man's. I'm not going to say he's going to be a Jalen Johnson, but he's got some of those sort of attributes there. He's pretty sneaky athletic. He can pass, like you said. He can run the break, defend a little bit there. Are you confident enough with his defense at the NBA level?
I think that's one area that he's solid at, right? He's still got room to improve, but at that size, at 6'8",
he's a big boy.
you can be a little bit flexible about where you put him, right? Defensively.
No,
so I think that gives you great options with him, and he's a willing learner as we've seen. So to go to a situation for him where he has a couple of vets that he can learn under, a good coaching staff is going to be good for him, right?
Yeah. Wouldn't you love to see one of these Aussies go to our Hawks? So whether it's these two, whether it's Lockie Ulbrich, whether it's Tyrese Proctor, one of these guys, I'd love the Hawks to get one there. And I'm sure Tui will be someone you do get his jersey, right, when he does get drafted. Have you got a Kings Tui jersey? I hope so.
No, I don't.
You don't? Wow. Well, they're on special at the moment in the NBA store, so you might get lucky.
NBL store, you mean?
NBL store as well, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool. All right, so let's move on. And let's get your sleeper, Robbie. Who you got?
Right, Woods. Well, for my sleeper, this is a guy I had to talk about, right? This is a guy I was following most of last season in college. So I'm not sure if you realise, Woods, there's never been a Clayton in the history of the NBA. So I had a look. There's been 2 guys with the first name Clayton that basically never played. There was also a guy that played or got drafted with the name of Clay Tor. So close, but not quite Clayton. He never played either. So amazingly enough, there's never been a Clayton in the NBA. So I'm really excited to see that will be changing in 2 days' time. So I'm talking about Walter Clayton Jr. there, Woods. So a little bit about Clayton Jr. So this guy's a winner, right? 6'2" combo guard, helped lead the Florida Gators to the 2025 NCAA title. From what I've seen with him, really like his passing and also that ability to run the break. He can be a great shooter off the dribble as well. So maybe a little bit of a tweener with that being a combo guard there. 6'2" combo guard. Not sure how much that 2 guard you'll be able to play depending on certain lineups there. But look, as I said, the guy's a winner there, coming out of that great Florida Gators program there. So I guess maybe a couple of knocks. He's already 22, so we've talked about a couple of 18-year-old guys before. This guy's 22, so and as I said, he is undersized as far as a combo guard, so that concerns me a little bit there. One thing I have heard though, his stock's risen a fair bit. So when I checked this last week, he was expected to be a very late first-round pick. A couple of people had him going in the early 30s. I'm hearing he could go maybe early to mid 20s. I don't know what your latest intel saying there, but early to mid 20s is the last sort of thing I heard there, which would be
20. I got him 20.
20, yeah. So he's risen a lot because, as I said, a lot of people were saying early second round, maybe 30 or 31. So 20 would be huge for him to go there. I know you watched a bit of college last season. What were your thoughts? Can't wait to see a Clayton Woods. I can't wait to get this jersey. Whichever team drafts him, I'll be buying the jersey. But give me some thoughts on him.
I mean, just an explosive scorer, right? Like this, we saw him like in that run towards the end there, right? His ability to shoot off the dribble, can create for his teammates. He can attack the rim. He's got all the tools to be a quality NBA player. Maybe not an all-star, but like this guy is going to be he could be a starting level guard in the NBA, right?
So I've got two player comps to him, right? One of them, I'll tell you the one I'm maybe not as happy about for, just because he's a little bit smaller than him, but I see a little bit of Jamal Murray, a little bit of a similar skill set there. Obviously, Murray's a bit of a bigger, more physical guy, a couple of inches taller, a bit of a stronger sort of guy, but probably the one I do relate to in Woods would maybe be a CJ McCollum type player. I can see some similarities in their game there, guys that are, good shooting off screens, they can handle the ball a little bit of a tweener in terms of those positions. Do you like the CJ McCollum one there?
I do. Actually, NBA Draft.net, just looking right now, we've got they've got the player comp as Tyler Johnson.
Hopefully it goes better than Tyler Johnson, otherwise he might end up in the NBL for Brisbane.
Or Campaign. They've got Campaign and Tyler Johnson here. So that's odd.
Interesting. Look, I hope he has. Well, Campaign's had a decent career, I guess. But hopefully he's better than Tyler Johnson. But I try and give the upside when I give these predictions there. So I'm not saying he's going to be a Jamal Murray or a CJ McCollum. I just see some similarities in that CJ comparison there. And the fact that his draft stocks have risen obviously means that he's performed well in these draft camps and workouts and everything else like that. But looking forward to see where it goes. And teams like drafting winners, right? We saw that with a lot of these Villanova guys after they won. That teams were wanting to draft them there. He was the best player on that team last year for Florida. So. Wouldn't it be great if Hawks have got to pick around 20, don't they? So, man, imagine there was a Clayton playing for the Hawks. That would top things off. I'd love that.
Thanks.
He's never been a Venkat in the NBA as well.
No, there never will be.
Nah, well, you never know.
So I've gone with my sleeper as Cam Jones out of Marquette. Heard a lot about him?
Haven't heard a lot about him, no, apart from just seeing the name of the college,
6'4", 202, senior, age 23, an older rookie, right? An older college guy who's coming in as a rookie after 3 years, playing there at Marquette. 18.9 points, 4.5 rebounds, 6.1 assists a game, right? In his year last year, Jones offers a crafty combo guard skills, and he has got advanced shot creation and blossoming playmaking field. But his so-so athleticism and streaky shooting paint him as just a cog rather than a rare star upperclassman set to enter the league. So when you break it down a little bit, it talks about how some of his strengths are he already moves like an NBA veteran and a scorer, right? His ability to create for himself and others is a skill set of his. He can finish at the rim, he can spot up and shoot, and he's a willing defender. Some of the concerns are his athleticism. He's a good athlete, but not a great one. He doesn't have an explosive first step. He shot less than 70% from the free throw line in college, and as a guard getting to the ring a lot, you're going to get fouled and you're going to have to make your free throws. And he shot very poorly off the dribble. But what you get with some of these 3-4 year guys coming into the NBA is they're much more seasoned players. They know about their game a little bit better. He's not going to come in here and try and be a star. He's going to try and play a role and forge a good NBA career for himself. And I think late in the second round, you get some of these 3-4 year guys coming out of college that are hidden gems, let's say.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah, I mean, look, like you said, people want those guys that can fit in well, a little bit more maturity there, perhaps, ability to adapt to a team and not be all about sort of you and making that name for yourself. So, yeah, it's a decent one. So, who's your player?
Donte DiVincenzo.
Okay.
All right. And I mean, I'm not sure he's going to have as great a career as Donte DiVincenzo.
Yeah.
But Donte wasn't the greatest shooter coming into the league. He was a solid shooter, right? He was shooting 30%, mid-30s from three in college, less, right? So he worked on his game and, he's really... So you never know with some of these guys, right? Who are willing to put in the hard work. Then who are they going to be in 3-4 years, right?
Yeah. No, looking forward to it. Like we say, the second round ones, they're kind of free swings, aren't they? You can sort of, based, on potential, a guy that's, an instant fit straight away. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with some of these second rounders. And as we mentioned, a lot of, Aussies to keep an eye on there. Is there going to be any, Isan Ilmanza is going to be the only next star kind of guy that probably will get drafted. And then we've got, Proctor, Ulbrich, Tui, and Rocco Zikarsky. So 4, Aussie guys to really keep an eye on there, which is super exciting. They'll all get drafted, won't they? All 4 of them. Is there any concerns that Proctor won't?
Proctor probably go late in the second round, right? But I honestly think that he might be the best player in 5 years out of all these guys, possibly, right? Like
he's improved his shooting a lot over the last season or 2 in college. So yeah, look, they'll all go, won't they? They'll all go in the from maybe mid 30s to that 50 sort of pick, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. Oh well, that's a good segue into true or false, because the very first true or false question is related to this discussion we're having right now. So Robbie, Lachlan Ulbrich will be in the NBA next season.
I think true. I think it might be likely via way of a 2-way contract, Woods. So maybe whichever team drafts him looks, to try and, further his development there, like we saw with guys like Luke Travis and that sort of stuff. But I do think it'll be next year. I think, we saw guys like Alex Dukas didn't get drafted last year, and he basically got on straight away as a 2-way player for OKC there. So apparently he's moved up a lot in those draft stocks. I heard Jonathan Gavoni talking about him today, saying that he's really sort of improved people. He's a really high level rebounder, a good passer. Maybe doesn't quite have that amazing athleticism or maybe long wingspan there, but he's someone that can definitely block shots, and he's a smart player, right? We've always known that about him, and I think he'll continue to improve his outside shot there. So yeah, I'm going to say true for that.
Yeah, I'm going to say true as well. Is there some food for thought that somebody drafts him and stashes him back in Australia for a year to learn under Tatum?
Well, Wildcats looking for a big, so he can go there if he wants.
You come back and play for Tatum if there's in a room on that roster still.
Yeah. There's no money left for that roster.
That's true. Okay, next one. Kevin Durant will win a championship with the Rockets.
I've got to say false for that one, Wood. So, look, I do like the move, as we spoke about at the start there. I just don't see it happening in these next couple of seasons for the Rockets, and it is that short sort of window there, I think, for 2 seasons now. Look, they've improved. They're going to be a contender next year, but are they going to be better than, a New York team that's going to come back hungry? OKC would basically bringing back the same team. And there'll be some teams, especially in that Western Conference, that sort of come from nowhere. Minnesota's not going anywhere in a hurry.
Agree.
Lakers with Luka starting the season, they're not going to be going anywhere soon. So yeah, look, I'd say false for that one.
Yep, I'm going to agree with you. False. But it still makes things interesting in Houston, right? They're going to be competitive, right?
Yeah.
Right, so while we're on the theme of Houston, Reed Shepherd has to be part of the Rockets rotation this season.
Yeah, look, I think you've got to say true for that. I think he has to be part of it. The question is more how he will go with that extra responsibility. So I honestly still think the jury's out a little bit on his game there. Amazing shooter in college, hasn't quite shown it even in the limited minutes so far with Houston. But to answer the question, I think true, he will be part of that rotation. You think the same?
Yeah, I think true as well, right?
You're high on Reed Shepherd, aren't you? I know you picked him for Rookie of the Year last season, but you're high on the guy, aren't you?
I like his game. I just don't want to see another Jimmer Fredette,
Yeah, no,
that's
hope not.
Okay, final question. Jalen Adams will be back in the NBL. I'm not saying this season. I'm just saying Jalen Adams will be back in the NBL.
Obviously, as we know, Wood's not one of my favourites there. I'm going to say false. I think he did have an up and down season last year. And I'm just not quite sure, at this stage of his career that, teams value his on or his off-court leadership these days. So I think maybe based on that maybe we won't see him in the NBL now. Maybe it's, China's in his future, or Japan or Korea or one of those sort of places. So I'll say false.
I'll say false too. The problem with Jalen Adams is he doesn't want to go anywhere and be a role player. He wants to be the guy, right?
Yeah,
and that's... You're going to struggle finding jobs if you have that attitude, right?
Yeah, true.
All right. Thanks, Robbie. Great show. We're at 54 minutes. I think we'll leave Classic Packs till next week.
Yeah, we'll push that back to next week. And obviously, we've got a bit more time in these coming episodes, don't we? So I figure, look, we'll come back next week, Woods, and we'll recap the draft, and we'll also talk about, any more of these trades. There's going to be some draft day trades. You just know there will be, right? So 7 years ago to the day, we saw Atlanta drafting Luka Doncic and Dallas drafting Trae Young, and SGA being in that draft and all these other sort of things like that. So looking forward to see what happens, and we'll be back next week to recap it, and then we'll see how we go after that. We may take a week off or so. We'll see how we're feeling, right?
We got to do our selections, right? All world team.
Yes. Have you got your homework started with that yet? Or?
Yes, I have, man. I have.
Okay.
So we'll do that
So
next week, right?
I've got a list, and I've got to cull that down a bit. So that's going to be hard to do that. Yeah.
All right, awesome. So why don't you take the audience out with where we can be found and all of that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, please make sure you like, rate, and subscribe on YouTube or wherever you listen to your audio podcasts. Start off with maybe Patreon, Woods. We sort of mention that sometimes. If anyone wants to, pledge a little bit of support for us, feel free to, to help us out there. Obviously, a lot of costs associated with doing this show each week and that now, but you can also follow us on X, as I always like to say, at Throwback Hoops. So one thing we say, Woods will always put up those jersey pictures. So I know he posted the Ben Henschel jersey today. He also put that great card. So show you that one again, Woods, the beautiful Jarell Martin rookie card there. So we'll make sure we get that one back up there. So yeah, also Instagram, throwback.hoops, and email address, throwbackhoopspodcast@gmail.com.
Thanks, Robbie. Yeah, end of a great NBA season. Very interesting draft ahead in a couple of days. So the headlines continue. Any final thoughts?
Well, final thoughts, Woods, will be, I know you're coming out on Saturday night, but really looking forward to NBL 1 this week. So my Hills Hornets will be taking on the Bankstown Bruins. Anyone's around the area, come down and watch this. So Bankstown, the women's game will be first. They're led by Shyla Hill. I think most people would have heard of her. Really looking forward to see her and call her for the very first time. They've also got a couple of newly added Americans there. And then the Bankstown team have Jason Cadee, Jalen Galloway, Hayden Blankley. So all three of them. And they've also got a couple of Americans on top of that. So they're a loaded team there. So you've got front row seats, I believe, for that one, right?
VIP, man. VIP. What time are I going to be?
4:30 is the women's game, mate. If I look over and I'm commentating and I see you eating some gourmet burger or something like that, I'm going to be very jealous there because I don't
think
really
they
get
give
to
us
eat
the
when
pasta,
I'm
like the
pasta and garlic bread stuff.
That looks
dessert,
great.
Yeah. You'll just have a couple of Cokes or lemonades or something there. Will you?
No,
Okay, something more than that. You'll do a Jalen Williams and have some champagne and beer or something. Yeah. But no, looking forward to that. Yeah, another great NBA season in the books, Woods. Look, it's not too far away before we'll be doing NBL previews and everything else like that. So yeah, no, it's big congratulations to OKC for winning.
Yep. Shout out to OKC and Indiana, man. Great effort, great season. So from Robbie and I and the whole team at TBH, until next week, it's peace out.